Owens to the podium to lead us in the five-way test, prayer and pledge. And then Sarah Beth Estes will do guest introductions. And then after that, Membership Recruitment Chair Elizabeth Clogston will come up and introduce a new member.
Good morning. I'd like to ask you to please join me in stating the five-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Is it fun? I have a short prelude to the prayer this morning, but it ties in with my prayer. But let me ask real quick, how many are wearing their Rotary pin today? Raise your hand. If you're wearing your Rotary pin, okay. Well, so in the August Rotary magazine, I found a poem about the Rotary emblem that stems from a diary of a past president in Alberta, Canada from the 1930s. So I'm going to read you this short poem before the prayer. It's called Rotary Emblem. It's a little gold wheel with 6 little spokes and some cogs and some letters of blue. And this is the symbol that you wear on your coat as a trust that's given to you. The gold is the worth which fellowship bears, and the wheel is the limit of might, turned by the strength that we give to man when he works for the things that are right. The 6 little spokes are the virtues of life, and of truth and of kindness unfurled, forged in the heart by the maker of man, giving strength to the rims of the world. The little old cogs are the deeds that we do, which mesh with the deeds of a friend. And the whir of the wheel is the Rotary song, which carries a laugh to the end. So here's to the wheel and the 6 little spokes and the cogs and the letters of blue, for this is the symbol you wear on your coat as a trust that is given to you. Let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you for the worldwide healing power of Rotary. Now more than ever, we need this reminder of the connection between us globally as we pray for a more peaceful world. Amen. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have the privilege today of introducing our guests and recognizing their hosts. So when I say your name, if you would please stand, and then for the rest of us, just a reminder to hold your applause until everyone has been introduced. So first off, we have Paul Mangan, guest of Chris Mangum. Stephanie Maccabee, guest of Bill Maccabee. Chad Johnson, guest of Holt McConnell. Leslie Fiskin, guest of Wendy Wood. Parker Clay and Colin Cahill, guest of Laza Razafimanjato. Yeah, thanks. Colin Crawford, guest of Courtney Little. James Jackson, guest of Rocky Goodman. And Dustin Roddy, guest of Denver Peacock. Great, welcome everybody.
Good afternoon. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. I am very pleased to welcome Amy Baltz to Club 99. She is sponsored by Pam Hathaway, who unfortunately couldn't be here to stand up with her. Amy has a BA in Communication Arts and Marketing from Xavier University in Cincinnati, Ohio. She is newly retired from a 23-plus year career in healthcare technology. Amy's last position was Senior Director managing the implementation and adoption of electronic medical records, EMR, for McKesson. There she was responsible for a 70-member team based in various U.S. cities. Amy enjoyed helping to modernize and improve how oncology patients' care was better documented and supported for better outcomes. For fun, she enjoys yoga and is a very late-in-life lover of downhill skiing. She and her husband Brad are passionate about travel and are only 3 states short of their goal to visit all 50 states. They need North Dakota, South Dakota, and Alaska. Please join me in welcoming Amy Baltz to Club 99.
All right, thank you, Elizabeth, and welcome, Amy, to Club 99. We are so happy to have you here. And now I'd like to invite Major Bill and Stephanie Maccabee with the Salvation Army to the podium to talk about the Angel Tree program that our club is participating in this year. And then after that, we're going to have Service Committee Chair Dan Parker, who's going to provide some more details on several volunteer opportunities coming up. And then after that, Mitch Bettis will come up and talk about our reading program at the Gibbs Magnet Elementary School.
So 2 weeks ago, we brought 50 angels to the club, and we said that we wanted to take that on as a project for Club 99, and we've done pretty well. There are 14 angels left. I believe there is one on every table, so if you could take one of those angels on there, it'll have the child's name, their age, their gender, what they really want for Christmas, their clothing size, everything can be there that you'll possibly need to shop for that child. On the back side there, it'll give you some directions on where to return the child and just a few kind of pointers there. So we have 14 left. If you could take one, that's great. If you want to take one and you cannot find an angel, my wife, Major Stephanie Maccabee, she can help you if that is a problem. We will get you angels to shop for, but we really appreciate that. We're asking for gifts to be returned by December 9th, unwrapped, so that we can get all of the over 2,000 kids, get everything lined up ready for their families and their parents and guardians to be able to take those gifts and to give those on Christmas morning. There will be lots of smiles, lots of joy, lots of fun. If you could help participate in that, we would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. We have some new opportunities for you to serve, for ways that we can help our community. Because we really do make a difference in what we're doing. You know, we had a great showing at Miracle League back in September. Aldersgate had a record year this past October, so we're ready for some more. The next thing that we're going to have going on is Arkansas Food Bank on December the 5th. That's next Tuesday, I believe. From 6 until 8 o'clock at night, we're going to pack boxes. There's a big effort underway to make sure that people get fed this holiday season. So we're going to be packing boxes. We've got 15 slots reserved. I believe we have 7 signed up so far. So I need you, and you. And feel free to bring a family member if you'd like to. That's always a good thing. I know when we did the Miracle League, seeing young people out there contributing their time and learning the benefit of serving others above self. The other thing I want to mention is we need some more mentors at Dunbar. We have 10 Rotarians who have stepped up and are mentoring these young people, these 6th, 7th, 8th graders. It's 1 day a week, about an hour, 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock. We need 4 more. We need 2 men and 2 ladies to step up and mentor 4 kids who have indicated they want the mentoring and who have guardians who have consented to allow us to mentor to them. That's a big step for a young person in an area that's really underserved community. A lot of single parent homes, a lot of grandparents raising these young people, and they need the influence of many of you around the room who are already participating, but we need some more. So if you're interested, feel free to give me a call or an email, or catch me after the meeting, and we'll make that happen. Thank you so much.
Lots of opportunities to serve. It's a beautiful part of being in Rotary, is an opportunity to make an impact. And one of those areas that this club has been intensely involved with for years is helping improve the literacy rate of K through 3 grade level reading in the Little Rock School District. This club has had multiple initiatives through the years. Many of you have been here and given away dictionaries, and you've been in school reading books, and you've had a lot of engagement on that topic. You may know, a couple of years ago, this club said we need to double down as a partner with the Little Rock School District on helping improve reading scores by 3rd grade. Why? Because if a child can read at 3rd grade level, by 3rd grade, they're less likely to drop out of school. We need every young person to graduate high school. Why? Because they are less likely to pick up a gun and choose violence. They are more likely to be ready for the workforce, and all of you are hiring people today, need that. And third, they're much more likely to live above the poverty line. And the critical piece of this is reading at the 3rd grade level. 2 years ago, we started an intense partnership with the Little Rock School District where many of you participated in a summer reading pilot program. That then materialized into a full-fledged, more intensive pilot program at Washington and Stevens Elementaries earlier in the spring, the following year. And we have now marshaled a new program with Gibbs Magnet Elementary that we are incredibly excited about. And we need your help. If you have a passion for young people being able to read and the literacy effort in general, we need your help. And the new program starts in January, and it's only going to be for like 30 minutes. It's a minor investment. Before you go to work, you can breeze through Gibbs Elementary and spend a little quality time in a structured program that the district has chosen. We didn't choose how to do this. They're professional educators, and they've adopted a new program that they are very excited about that can make an impact. They need men and women who are willing to be mentors and volunteers to come in just for a brief time and read with young people. We're going to give you the details for any of you who want to participate. We're going to meet just right over here, right after the program today, to sort of give you a few more details. But we hope to have all of you who've been helping to marshal those strengths to be able to help make an impact at Gibbs. Thank you all very much.
All right, so thank you, Bill and Dan and Mitch, for all those opportunities. It just gives us a great opportunity to give back and end the year on a good note and start next year on a very good note as well. So you may have noticed on your tables that there are a few copies of last year's annual report. This was the year Denver was president, and it is chock full of all the accomplishments of our club last year. In case you have forgotten, there's some pretty amazing highlights in here, including on the cover, the La Petite Roche Global Service Award, which had its premiere last year. So anyway, I encourage you to take a copy. This was emailed, but Karen went ahead and printed some colored copies, which is great. And if you run out on your table, she may have a few extras. Also, speaking of Karen, she had a fabulous newsletter this week. For those who are not on Facebook and kind of enjoy the fun of that activity, there were all kinds of pictures of Club 99ers in the fun that they had with their families around Thanksgiving. Also, there were a lot of announcements about our club. In case you haven't noticed, this club has a lot going on. So please take time each week to scroll down through that newsletter because there may be some upcoming events that may be of interest to you. Also, I have a little bit of a fun tip for the week. Natalie is doing the book this year called The Power of Fun by Catherine Price. And I have a little tip on chapter 4, which for those of you reading the book, this is the auditing your fun, believe it or not. I read the book over the summer, and as a former auditor, this whole chapter caught my attention, and I decided to take a week and audit my activities and figure out what was fun and what are the things I thought were fun or were supposed to be fun but really weren't. Well, the surprise that came to me was how many of the things that I thought were hard. And I say hard as a relative term. Hard for me, or things that I kind of dread. And I'll give an example that happened last week. 2 weeks ago, actually, I took one of these angel tree cards. And I was kind of dreading it because I hate shopping. And I never had kids, so I don't even know what kids like. I don't like shopping to begin with. But I thought, okay, it's supposed to be fun. So as luck would have it, I had all my grandkids with me last week. So I took them all to Barnes & Noble. And I happened to select a angel card for a 4-year-old, and my youngest grandchild is 4. So I was buying her a gift, letting her pick out her own Christmas gift since I hate shopping. And so I thought, well, whatever she finds, I'm going to get it for this other girl as well. Well, needless to say, we had a ball, and I was so shocked because what she picked out is not something I would have picked, but it ended up fulfilling all the criteria on that little angel card. So that just goes to show you that things that you think may be hard are actually very fulfilling. And so you just heard some great service opportunities from Dan and from Mitch, and just this little angel tree. It took, I'm telling you, 5 minutes. Now, I cheated. I had a 4-year-old with me. But if you go to Walmart or Barnes & Noble, that's where I was, there are kids everywhere this time of year. You just kind of watch the toy aisle for the age you're looking at, and they will pick a toy out for you. It's actually very easy. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that. And I think we also have a video of a member having fun. Do we have that queued up? All right, let's go ahead and roll that.
Hi, my name is Molly McNulty. I'm a lawyer at the Arkansas Court of Appeals. I grew up going to plays with my parents and developed at an early age a love for musical theater. And even though I have zero talent, you do not want to hear me sing, I so enjoy seeing live theater performance. I enjoy going and listening and singing along silently to myself in the aisles at musicals around town. I'm sure my parents took me to anything. I'm an only child, and so it's easier for me to just go along with them. But I mean, from Les Mis to we saw Cats in 1995 in London. I mean, you name it, we went to see it. My top 3 favorite musicals of all time are, in no particular order, Cats, Les Mis, and Hamilton. I think thanks to teaching my children all of the lyrics, I could sing the entire soundtrack to Hamilton. I saw it twice when it was here. That's how much I love it. And then once Broadway and then Memphis. For our honeymoon, Chris and I went to Australia and New Zealand, and we had a fabulous time, from scuba diving at the Great Barrier Reef to eating at fabulous restaurants, spending New Year's Eve at Sydney, and one of our last stops was Melbourne. And so Chris and I have been together for, almost 3 weeks at that point, and we walk by and I see that there is a sign for Cats, and I just lit up. And poor Chris McNulty does not share my love of musical theater. So I went up, and sure enough, there were tickets available. And I came back to him and I said, I can get a ticket, but why don't you go do whatever you want to do? And he looked at me and said, is this a joke? And I said, no, it's not a trick. So Chris did a river cruise, and I went to Cats by myself. Then we met up for a lovely dinner afterwards. And it was a moment of the honeymoon that neither of us will never forget. I love live theater for a lot of different reasons, but I would say that lawyers are frustrated actors. One other thing that I'm involved in that's been fun over the years is a production called Gridiron, which is a political spoof every 2 years at the Arkansas Repertory Theater that lawyers and judges put on. My mom has produced it for over 30 years, and I have participated in some form or fashion since I was about in 6th grade. It's in wretchedly bad taste, and people have fun and are able to laugh and enjoy themselves at local politics.
That is awesome. Thank you, Molly. And I love that honeymoon story. That's a little unusual. All right, with that, let's bring Mitch Bettis back to the podium to introduce today's program.
literacy hat off, duck hat on. It's a pleasure to introduce the program today. If the four panel members want to go ahead and start making their way up, you can get seated here while we do the introductions. You may ask why Mitch is doing this introduction at Arkansas Business. One of the 30 or so magazines we produce a year is the magazine on your table called Greenhead. It's the Arkansas's duck hunting magazine. I encourage you to take those with you. It is a beautiful read. And one of the panelists today, Brent Birch, helped found this magazine in 2015. And it's a nationally award-winning publication celebrating this particular unique part of Arkansas culture and history, and we're proud to be a part of that. And this is a tremendous panel that we have, including Scott Covert on the end over here, three-time Emmy award-winning meteorologist at THV 11. And his work includes the intersection of climate and weather, and of course, Arkansas duck hunting. He's a native Arkansan. Covert now resides in Maumelle with a whole pack of golden retrievers. And so we appreciate Scott leading our discussion today. His panelists today include Brent Birch, the executive director of the Little Rock Technology Park, and he is the editor of Greenhead magazine. I don't want to embarrass Brent, but it's hard to find a greater expert on duck hunting than Brent Birch, who also equally loves, appreciates, and advocates for land management and everything about this particular industry, and we're blessed to have him here. He's also published a book on the history of the Arkansas Grand Prairie, and he's co-host of the Standard Sportsman podcast, so we're glad Brent's here as well. Corey Dunn is the Director of Development for Ducks Unlimited Arkansas. Dunn is a native Arkansan as well, developed a passion for the outdoors at an early age, leading to an 18-year career in conservation. DU Arkansas works with the Game and Fish Commission to restore quality of green tree reservoirs and wildlife management areas across the state. Thank you, Corey. And then Gardner Lyle is the executive broker for Lyle Real Estate. Growing up, Gardner spent a lot of his free time with his dad. Many of you may know Gar Lyle, on the Arkansas Prairie and the Delta area, where he developed this intense passion for agriculture and recreational lands. He's been an active member of the Hat Club and the Arkansas Outdoor Society. I think we're in for a treat today. Make welcome the panel, and you're on, Scott.
So most are familiar with the rich culture of duck hunting in Arkansas, the legacy and the history, but today we want to focus on duck hunting, waterfowling in Arkansas through the lens of the economic impact the sport brings. There's a figure that floats around pretty commonly, $70 million economic impact in Arkansas. That equates to a little bit more than $1 million per day of duck season, the 60-day season in the state. That's kind of an old number. I think we all collectively agree with that. I know none of you are economists, but today you're going to get to play one. Take a stab at what you think the dollar amount economic impact in Arkansas is, broadly speaking, everything from conservation to science to actually hunting itself.
Yeah, I can take a stab at it. I know it's way more than $1 million a day. If you equate the whole 12 months out of the calendar year to it, that number is probably 30 years old, maybe older. And that's not even counting inflation and everything else. We're just talking about the value of land, which Gardner can speak to quite a bit, the value of equipment, what boats cost, what trucks cost, dogs. And then you have, to me, why you could stretch this dollar amount out. Duck hunting has become a 12-month out of the year deal. There's dogs, they run field trials, hunt tests, their investment there. There's this whole subculture related to boats, these that people hunt out of, that they do year-round events tied to their duck boat. So it's become a year-round deal. That doesn't even count trap shooting, skeet shooting, all those things too. And then land management, which is, if you're not managing land and putting that investment back into these communities around the state, then you're seeing probably your duck hunting slow down quite a bit. So that's a whole different investment that wasn't here probably when that $1 million a day number came out.
Scott, I'd hate to take a stab, but everything that Brent said is true. The land management has become a massive part of what the culture is in the state of Arkansas, being able to farm for ducks, but the importance of what that does for all the other critters out there that get to enjoy that, and the people too. So I don't know if the number's 10 times that, but it's staggering, I would say, way beyond $1 million a day.
And I would echo what Brent and Corey said. It's substantially higher, particularly when you factor in another. Scott said it, but there's a lot of conservation payments through WRP, CRP, and then also there's new programs coming out to motivate landowners and farmers to flood fields to provide habitat for wintering waterfowl. So those, I mean, when you factor those payments in as well, above what you can, put on boats and sporting goods sales, et cetera, it would be substantially higher, I feel like.
Let's talk more about those programs that are incentivizing farmers to maintain some habitat for the hunter benefit. What does those programs look like from the farmer's perspective, as well as somebody that might apply for a W. Rice permit?
I'll run with that one. We personally have a farm that we have enrolled in the W. Rice program, and for those of you that are not familiar with the W. Rice program, it's a really neat program that the Arkansas Game and Fish have been doing. I think this is going to be the 4th season now, and so it's an incentive for both landowners, farmers, and the public to work together. And to not go into all the details, it's basically paying landowners to flood fields that are grown in rice each year, but it's two purposes. During the week, there's no hunting allowed, so it serves as a rest area for waterfowl, and the fields are strategically in close proximity to the wildlife management areas that the Game and Fish own. So it functions for rest and habitat for ducks. And then a neat part of the program is on the weekend, it's a draw system, but it provides the public hunter additional hunting opportunities. And so you take a father or someone that has 2 or 3 kids that they want to take hunting, but they don't want to, be in the boat races at Biomeat at 4 a.m. on Saturday morning. They can actually put in for a draw and get drawn to take their kids to a rice field that's going to have a blind and a hunting opportunity set up for them, and it can be a good quality experience for them. And they may not kill all the ducks in the world, but it's still a way to get people outdoors and not have to go fight the public. And so, those payments help incentivize landowners to participate. And I don't know if that completely answers the question, but
Key takeaway is whether it's W. Rice through Game and Fish or perhaps some of the federal programs, there's a seemingly an increasing amount of these programs that offer incentives to farmers to manage for ducks.
Yeah, so CRP is going to be an annual payment. It's a 15-year contract, and the goal is to restore marginal farmland back to its natural habitat, and they do a mix of planting trees and what's called moist soil units. And WRE, the Wetland Reserve easement, is similar, but it's a one-time payment, and most of those easements are perpetual or in perpetuity, and the goal of that program is also to restore marginal farmland back to, hardland bottomwoods and habitat geared for protecting waterfowl.
Yeah, and there's a new program that the Game and Fish is working with the legislature on, that they're doing a pilot program this year, but it's not cash payments like what Gardner's talking about, but it's going to be tax breaks for farmers to. The trend in current day farming in Arkansas, especially rice farming, is to, as soon as harvest is done, which is done way earlier than it was 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago, the rice fields are now prepped for spring in the summer, because we start cutting rice in August and September now. So they work the fields up. Well, when they work the fields up, that doesn't leave behind any waste grain and other conditions that ducks prefer. So to provide more habitat like we used to have, because you hear people say all the time, if you're in duck hunting circles, we don't winter as many ducks as we used to, we don't feed as many ducks as we used to. Well, that's a big factor as to why. So to try to get more habitat for these ducks and for us to maintain our expectations and our brand, because it isn't a brand for our state and big for our economy, they're going to start offering tax breaks to farmers to not work their fields up in August and September, leave them until after the ducks leave, not even at the end of duck season, but ducks are still here in February, sometimes trickling into March. Leave that ground untouched, let the ducks have it. That way they'll have everything they need to still desire to come to Arkansas. And those tax breaks will factor in, and that may make their ability to, because farming is way more expensive for them to do in the spring than it is in the summer. So there's an economy of scale deal for the farmer. So you can't fault the farmer for doing this work, but hopefully these incentives will allow them to put off all this work prepping the ground for spring until after the ducks are gone. So that's a pilot program that's underway that they're going to try to get through the legislature.
So next question. Oh, Corey, go ahead.
Yeah, so not just farmers, Scott. So we've got a small family place down in Union County, close to El Dorado, but there's also some programs out there. We don't have an active farm, but we've been able to get some of these funds to be able to help improve that habitat. We've got some non-native invasive species that are coming in there, doing some timber stand improvement, also being able to work on our levees for our green tree reservoirs. So not just farmers, there's funds out there available for regular landowners as well.
Corey, my next question is for you along those lines. It's not just hunting those 60 days that pumps money into the local economy. There's a significant amount of conservation efforts from organizations such as yours, Ducks Unlimited, other conservation organizations in both that field as well as research. Can you speak more to those efforts, specifically to GTRs and perhaps maybe even the partnership with Dr. Osborne at UA Monticello?
So we've got a lot of exciting stuff going on in the state right now. I think probably more than ever in the history of the state of Arkansas on conservation efforts. Heard an updated number last week. So far, Ducks Unlimited since 1984, we didn't start spending money in the United States until the 80s. We started in 1937. But since 1984, we've been able to spend about $68 million in the state to be able to help with those conservation efforts. One of the big ones we got right now is with the Game and Fish Commission, working on their green tree reservoirs. That's public hunting areas and not just hunting, recreational areas for bird watchers and kayakers as well. But our plan is to be able to help raise $25 million to be able to help offset a $130 million effort on behalf of the Game and Fish Commission. We're also really invested in science. I say all the time, follow the science. We don't know what we need to do until we're able to know exactly what's going on with these animals and with the ecosystems and better manage for those. So we've got a endowed professorship in wetland and waterfowl ecology that we've started down at University of Arkansas at Monticello with Dr. Doug Osborne. The last several years, I think the last 7 years or so, he's been doing winter mallard banding and also GPS transmitter tracking the last few years to be able to collect some more data, and that's important to us as duck hunters, but important to us as conservationists to know how to better manage this land. But we've got several other things going on in the state as well. We've got a 1,500-acre piece of property over in West Memphis. That's marginal farmland that we're converting back to better habitat and wetlands. Not only does that help with habitat, but also helps with flood mitigation. So there's a ton of money that's been spent over in that project and all across the state. So excited just to be a part of that.
Gardner, I'm curious if you could speak to the value in property that has good duck habitat on it and what the recreational aspect of real estate looks like in your world these days.
So Arkansas, for those that don't know, is famous for green timber duck hunting in Arkansas, and I would say that that's probably the biggest value add that duck hunting adds to a sector of real estate. You know, for a marginal farm that has duck hunting, you know, there's definitely a value add, but for true green timber duck hunting, you know, you're taking a block of bottomland hardwoods that if you picked up and you put in southern and central Arkansas, an area where ducks don't fly or you wouldn't have active duck hunting opportunities, it may be worth, you know, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 an acre. And if you pick that same block of impounded green timber up and you move it to Stuttgart or northeast Arkansas and it has good proven waterfowl hunting history, that same block of bottomland hardwoods could bring 12, 15,000 plus an acre. So to give that as a, you know, how big a difference duck hunting adds, that's the best example I can give. I mean, there's other parts of East Arkansas where it's similar scenarios. You could take up a very marginal farm that would maybe only be worth $3,000 to $4,000 an acre, and if it has really good duck hunting on it, it's probably worth $7,000 to $8,000 an acre, depending on the location. So duck hunting, particularly if the property has proven success, certainly adds a lot of value for the landowner.
In terms of recreational real estate, over the last 10 years, what changes have you seen then versus today?
I would say in the last 10 years, there's been so much wealth created, and there's a drive for to own your own piece of rural real estate in Arkansas that has proven successful duck hunting. And the demand has just outpaced the available opportunities so greatly that the market has appreciated substantially in the last 10 to 15 years. And that's just because demand continues to outpace supply of good proven historical, hunting opportunities or properties.
So a lot of time, folks want that property, aren't ready to make the purchase yet. They opt to lease some land. What is y'all's dealings with land leases this time of year? It seems like you see a lot of ads, leases available, whether that's a day rate, a few days, weeks, months. What's the going rate for that?
Well, going rates all over the board. The one thing about that too, though, in today's culture, or today's environment, is it's also a little bit of buyer beware too, because people are trying. There's a definite element trying to create more of this land, because good Lord's not making any more, 30, 40, 50 foot tall oak tree impoundments that the ducks like. So to create it, you're talking a pretty long window out. So people, there's definitely a contingency that's looking for that kind of property that can't find it. And so there's some marginal properties obviously come onto the landscape that aren't proven, that don't really have a track record, but people still end up leasing them. And I mean, leases are all over the board depending, but I mean, they range anywhere from, I don't know, a little bit under 10 grand probably up to, I don't know. I have heard there is a doctor's group from Kentucky that lease a pretty big chunk of ground in far northeast Arkansas, and they pay $500,000 a year lease. They don't own any of that ground, but that's scattered out all over that part of the world, kind of that Delaplane area, way up there. But yeah, I mean, you think about that, that's crazy numbers, and that's per season for a 60-day duck season. $500,000. That's probably the high end.
Describe the atmosphere. Of course, we're in Little Rock. We're not too far from the Delta. What's the local economies like in these small towns? Whether it's the gas stations, the outfitters, the Airbnbs. What does that look like this year? And how does a poor season sometimes affect the livelihoods of those folks?
I'll go first on that, guys. There are a lot of these smaller communities that they are living off of that 60-day duck season. Without that injected into that economy, a lot of those places don't exist as they exist today. Like I said, the gas stations, the little mom and pop food stores, Dollar General stores that pop up. Right? But without that influx of population, because we get 50,000 out-of-state duck hunters every year on top of the 50,000 duck hunters we have in the state every year, and they don't go to those places unless it's duck season. So without that influx of people, it looks a lot different than it does now.
Yeah, the tourism piece is huge. We actually, last year was the first time ever since they've been tracking it that we actually sold more out-of-state duck stamps than we sold in-state duck stamps. So it's the tourism piece of it is significant. So it's a very close number, but it's if you calculate it out, it's about 50.5%. It's close, but still, more people are coming to Arkansas to hunt than residents are hunting. So that tourism piece is crucial, and yeah, these little towns depend on it. The farmers depend on it. This is for the leases and things that they have. That allows them. Equipment, trucks, vacations, whatever they spend in town too. So you got to think of this as like I said earlier, it's a 12-month out of the year deal. This money doesn't just all happen during the 60 days of duck season. It perpetuates throughout the year for these economies that nothing else is going on during the off season. But that allows them, some walking around money to do some things with. A lot of them come to Little Rock from those towns, come shop, come spend the weekend, things like that. So you got to think of it that way too. Kind of a statewide impact. Go to Razorback games. That all factors in.
Brent, I know you're not a guide, but you did let me go on a duck hunt with you last year. So you were my guide that day. I want to ask you this. You said buyers beware earlier when it comes to leases. Boy, it feels like everybody's a guide these days. What's the money to be made? I know sometimes it's a per gun rate. Ballpark me what someone might be looking at for a good guide.
Yeah, as far as outfitters go, probably the lowest end of that would be the the speckled-belly goose guides, which have exploded in the last few years because we are now wintering more. A couple years ago, we had a really long season. It was almost 3 months long on that particular bird. They get here earlier, so you're able to hunt them before duck season starts. So it created this explosion of outfitters. And that's about $250 a day for a gun, no lodging, nothing. You show up, sit on a stool, and shoot geese when they come in. All the way up to, I mean, I know of a lodge, and y'all know it too. Everybody would know it if I said the name, but it's 20 grand a night. And that's one night. That's the lodge. You take the whole lodge, the meals, and the hunt. And it's obviously geared towards a corporate client. Almost all of their guests are big name brand corporations that bring important clients in, but most of them are around probably the more normal, the good ones, nice lodge, nice meals, all that. You're probably looking at between $800 and $1,100 a night, a hunt per person.
Seemingly everyone has a complaint about the status of duck hunting right now in Arkansas waterfowling. Everyone's got different ideas and theories. I'm curious if each of you three would answer, what do you think's the number one thing going right in Arkansas waterfowling?
I think over the last 10 years or so, I think the level of education of the different farmers and conservationists that really care about the resource and are investing back in that resource and really putting dollars on their farms and the habitat in the state.
Yeah, I agree with that. There is, and thankfully some of us are leveraging social media to do that. Social media has been terrible for waterfowling, terrible. It creates a false set of expectations. It creates a lot of times a message that's not right. I mean, there's some guys in this room. I mean, Dustin Roddy's sitting over there. He's a guy that has a right message. It's very conservation oriented, because you can't just think about killing ducks. You got to think about the impact that our efforts as humans to be able to perpetuate this sport, where it all kind of trickles in. So you can't just love killing ducks. You got to love ducks. Is kind of the way I look at it. So you get some guys with the right messaging, and hopefully people that are sitting on this stage, some of the people in the room can continue that to make sure that those that are in the sport and have come into the sport in the last 10, 12 years, because duck hunting has become super, super cool thing to do. And that we're one of the few states in the whole country that is not losing hunters at a exponentially rapid pace. And the big reason of that is because duck hunting has branded itself as a pretty cool thing to do, and that's because it is. But we got to get that message right. So I think those kind of efforts to do that, the more we can do that, I think we're going to continue to see an uptick and maybe get more of the things that are wrong with duck hunting fixed.
I think one of the most positive things going on in duck hunting right now, outside of what the two, Corey and Brent, have said, is that I think everybody is now working together towards protecting our resource and the habitat that Arkansas is so fortunate, blessed to have. And you see Ducks Unlimited and Delta Waterfowl, teaming up and working together. I feel like more in the last 5-7 years, just to, if you look back 20, 30 years ago, I was, very young then, but from my understanding, it was more divided then, and not just those two organizations, but as a whole, I feel like everybody's working as a team to try to get more educated and to protect the resource that we're so fortunate to have.
Corey, can you say more about those partnerships, whether that's with your organization, Game and Fish, National?
Well, we don't own any land in the state of Arkansas. So what we do is we support those partners that do own the land, Game and Fish Commission, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, but we also support the private landowners. We've got a biologist that his job is to be able to go around and meet with a private landowner or duck clubs and be able to help them with their habitat. So without partnerships, we don't exist, and we do no good in the state.
I think we have time for some questions. Would that be okay? Any audience questions for these gentlemen? Yeah, right here.
I went to high school with Keith, so no telling where this is coming from. Worse? Yeah, well, he's asking, we grew up together, went to high school together, knew each other long before that. So he knows, when I was a little kid, my dad sitting over there in the corner, getting to tag along. So what's the difference between age 13 and age 53? Because, it's a pretty expansive window. Probably the biggest thing, obviously the gear's better, guns are better, bullets are better, everything's better in that regard. But what a lot of that has allowed us to do is put more pressure on the waterfowl. And that's a driving factor that's kind of keeping the success rate down is boats can go in places they couldn't go when I was 13. They can go now. Well, those places are where the ducks like to hide out and get away from humans. So we kind of bother them a lot, and that's a big difference. And again, I go back to, just like most things in this world, social media didn't exist when we were 13, obviously. And it's made a mess of waterfowling a little bit. A lot of the bad stuff gets brought to the forefront, and not enough of the good stuff, and it creates a kind of a weird dynamic. It's created a lot of factions within the sport, which is kind of goofy and disruptive. But those are probably the biggest things.
Yeah, right here.
So I didn't grow up duck hunting, and my questions are trying to understand the terminology you guys were using. What is green timber, and what is farming for ducks? What does that mean?
So green timber, GTRs, green tree reservoir. So basically that is a levied group of trees that are live trees that are flooded seasonally to be able to create habitat for ducks. So in the Mississippi Alluvial Valley, all down the banks of both sides of the Mississippi, we've lost about 70% of our native forest. When the Europeans first settled here, we've got 70% less of that habitat there. So what we're trying to do is recreate some of that habitat that's no longer there.
And ducks eat little acorns, and they eat the little bugs that grow in those woods. And so those woods are dry during the summer.
What was your other question?
Farming for ducks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so Brent hit on this earlier. Years and years ago, rice farmers would plant their crop into, May and June, and then they would harvest it in October and November. And so the waste grain in October and November doesn't have the chance to resprout, and the combines now, which is the machinery that's used to harvest the rice crop, they're so much more efficient, just like everything else with technology. So there's a lot less waste grain, and coupled that with now a lot of the rice crop is planted in March and April, and to what Brent said earlier, harvested in August and September, and the weather's warm enough then that a lot of that waste grain resprouts, so it doesn't even provide that waste grain or that food that was historically left years and years ago. So what the Game and Fish has been great about doing it, and some private landowners are doing, or they're trying to plant or marginal farmland or areas in habitat specifically for ducks, whether it be millet or rice or corn, to try to help offset that. But you can't really truly offset that just because of the magnitude of rice that was grown in Arkansas over the years.
So we don't harvest that for human consumption. We leave that and farm that for the ducks to be able to have a food resource.
This is a question from Brent Birch, if there ever was one.
Well, I'll answer the who's who one, and Gardner can take it, because I'm sure it's wingmeat that Elvis had an interest in before Mr. Lyon bought it. But famous people, you can take actors, politicians. Almost every president you can think of has come here to duck hunt. Countless actors. From doing the Grand Prairie book, I've got some really cool old photos of different actors, even in those eras, that have come here. But it's a who's who list, and it's interesting. I can remember I was hunting with Dad one day at the farm that they're east of Humnoak, and we see all these black Hawk helicopters coming into Stuttgart, and it's like a train of them, and you know they're pretty recognizable and they're pretty loud. And then we find out 2 days later that was when Jim Chaney came, and that was right after he had shot that guy on that hunt, if you remember that. So it was like that was kind of the joke around Stuttgart was who's hunting with who's hunting with Chaney this weekend? Mine would be heads up a little bit. So. Yeah, it's a draw. Like I said, it's definitely a brand for our state, even for the non-hunters. It's one of the few things I tell people all the time. Duck hunting is one of the few things Arkansas can really, really hang their hat on. If you go anywhere in the country and you say you're from Arkansas, and you run into somebody that duck hunts in California or Oregon or Texas or wherever, they are completely envious of what we have here, completely. And it's bucket list trip. I got to go there someday, or I've been there. It was unbelievable. All that. So it's one of those things we can really hang our hat on and should and kind of keep that going.
And they spend a lot of money to get here, while they're here, and in East Arkansas at the same time. Another question? Yeah, right here.
Have we seen changes in the flyway over the last couple of decades? Is it the same as always been?
Well, that's a popular theory. I mean, I'll hit on it real quick, and you can say whatever, but because I get this question all the time. It came up just this past weekend. There's a big theory that floats around in the duck hunting world that the ducks no longer follow the same flyway that they come through, and they've shifted to Oklahoma and Kansas. That is 1,000% created by social media. 1,000%. There is no banding data. You talked about the band. That's the bands. Metal bands got a number on them. Put them on a duck's ankle. They track where they write down where they banded them, and then when that bird is harvested, you call that number in, and they can tell you this bird is X amount of years old. This is where we banded it, and so they get the point A and point B of where that bird lived. Now, and have been doing this for a while, but now it's much more prevalent because organizations like Ducks Unlimited is raising more money to put GPS transmitters on ducks. So they got a little ankle bracelet version, they got a backpack version, so they can track these ducks. Every time they hit a cell tower, they can tell where that duck is. And so it checks in all the way from Canada all the way to wherever it ends up in the winter and back. There's no data whatsoever that supports those ducks that we banded in this flyway that we're in, Mississippi flyway, and they've shifted west to Oklahoma and Kansas. It's 1,000% created by social media. No, not really, no.
The only thing that I've seen, and this comes from Dr. Doug Osborne too, in the GPS transmitter study, what he has seen is maybe a little bit shift further north. And a lot of that's got to do with just the weather patterns. You know, we don't have the extreme temperatures and the snowfall at certain times to be able to help push those ducks down. So if any kind of shift, a little bit further north.
Some of the research that I saw this week from those GPS bands actually suggested 25% of mallards with those GPS backpacks not only still come to Arkansas, 25% of them go to the exact same body of water from the previous year. These birds are really smart.
Yeah, they are. So we had a gentleman that worked with us a few years ago. He was one of Doug Osborne's students down at UAM. He banded a bird. 2 years later, he harvested that bird within 6 miles of where he put that on 2 years before.
Certainly a lot of money going into the research, getting some of that science. Another question? Yeah, right here.
Yes, we left one thing out of the economic impact. I have 7-year-old triplet grandchildren who are taking duck calling. They're in Stuttgart.
Yeah.
But my real question was, how many stamps are sold each year? You said about it's half and half.
About last year was 101,000 some odd.
A duck stamp. So in order to be able to duck hunt, you have to have a state and a federal duck stamp. So that money goes back to be able to help with habitat, and that's also a good way to be able to keep track of how many people are out there.
Yeah, right here.
You know, it's obvious that the economics of duck hunting are very important to the state. But I'm concerned that perhaps the pendulum has swung too far, and the regulators are reluctant to modify the bag limits to recognize that we're dealing with a finite resource. You know, I've been duck hunting since I was 6 years old. And I've lived through dry years like we're having now when the hatch was nearly as
Brent, that's been a topic on
did
your
a
podcast. You
full
want to take that
podcast
stab?
on it.
Yeah, it's interesting because the way we can't track, it's impossible to track the number of every duck that's harvested. It's impossible. So they got these formulas that they plug all these data in, and it spits out in this matrix whether we should have the seasons we have now, which are considered liberal, 60 days, 6 ducks, and then there's a moderate, which is 45 days and 4 ducks, and then there's a restrictive, which is 30 days and 3 ducks. And so we've been on this 60 and 6 for 27 straight seasons, I think. And there's some groundswell within the scientific community that this data may not be telling us the right stuff, and the model needs to be adjusted. So we'll see how far that gets. We got to get more in the science community to start questioning. Let's go back and look at this again, because we're on a long run of the same season where we all remember as kids, the seasons went up and down all over the place. 30 days, 45 days, 50 days, 60 days. They used to have 70-day seasons back in the 50s. It's definitely, it needs to be looked at again.
Oh, yeah. So for those that may not know, the bulk of the ducks that we see in wintertime in Arkansas are bred and hatched above the border. So almost 70% of the ducks that we see down here in summertime are produced up north. And the Game and Fish Commission, along with lots of other states, realize the importance of that to the tune of $500,000 to $600,000 per year that they invest in the prairie pothole region in Canada to be sure that we have that resource up north that comes here in the wintertime.
I think that's all the time we've got.
Well, thank you, Scott, Brent, Gardner, and Corey, for being here today and sharing with us the powerful economic impact that duck hunting has. I had no idea. So again, thank you for that. And before you head out today, we would like to present you with a special gift. It's a fun little piece that you can put on your desk or maybe even your duck blind to remind you of today's visit. It actually features a new mural that we commissioned in the River Market District that promotes nature and the surroundings here in Arkansas, and of course the fun you can have here in Little Rock. This year's Rotary theme is all about fun and how important it is to your health and happiness and well-being. So let this be a daily reminder of your visit here today. Thank you. And a few more quick announcements before we adjourn. For next week, we will not be meeting here. There are 2 fabulous options to choose between. One is the Broyles Award, which is at the State House Convention Center, and the second is touring the renovated Breckenridge Village with Club 99er Hank Kelly and restaurateurs Jim Keat and Travis Hester. However, you do need to RSVP for those. So look for an email today from Karen on that. Also, the Literacy Committee will meet here in the corner after we adjourn. And don't forget those angel tree cards. Would love to, you can have some fun shopping for a young person. So anyway, with that, we look forward to seeing you again soon. We are officially adjourned. Thank you.